It's my pleasure to introduce Nicholas Errico to our special event today. Nicholas has been involved with PMI since 1997, earning the PMP, Program Management, and Portfolio Management certifications. He's currently working on his first book. His experience spans service delivery and sales. Nicholas is a regular speaker across the country. His talks take the from the field look approach and blend education, humor, and storytelling with a bit of exaggeration. He's originally from New York, living in the Dallas area now, and friends call him the New York Cowboy. Without further ado, here's Eric.
Thank you. I want you to think back. Think back to the most difficult interview question you've ever had. Perhaps that question would not only determine whether you would get the job, but would determine your next career path. I had my such moment 20 or so years ago. Out of college, I did LAN and desktop support. Did a little bit of process work. Went on to IBM in their process group, and I didn't particularly care for the work. However, I saw what the project managers were doing, and I thought that really looked interesting. So I read as many books as I could, attended as many conferences and seminars like you're at today. I made my interest known regarding project management. And later, I found myself in an interview with the director of project management. And it was during that interview that the hiring manager, Chris, asked me a question. She said, Nick, you're managing your project. Things are behind schedule. You know how to do the work since you came from that background. What do you do? And she baited me on. She said, Nick, do you roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty? What do you do? How do you help? I had to think about that for a little bit. I knew the answer was not really simple. I said, yes, I would help. However, I would not get my hands dirty. I would not roll up my sleeves. What do you suppose she was after? Can anyone tell me? What was she looking for? What was she digging for? A leader. Yes, exactly. The skill set that one possesses as an individual contributor, the hows, it's not the same as the skill set of a leader. You must make a transition from being an individual contributor to being a project manager or a project leader. I did get that job, and over the years I attended a lot more classes, a lot more conferences and seminars. And what I found from the training was it either grouped into the theory or it grouped into the tool set. And the theory always left me short. All these processes, the theory, what you should do, but it never really showed me how to do it. And the tools, well, they took the opposite approach. Typically, they would show me all the nice features, tips and tricks, what you could do, but they never really covered what I wanted to do. And I got frustrated with that over the years. Today, I suggest we come together, bring the theory and the tool set, and we talk about them together. I hope you enjoy the presentation. So I've given this presentation a few times. There's always someone who raises their hand and says, that's nice, Nick. It wouldn't work for me. It wouldn't work for my project. It wouldn't work in my organization. You don't understand. I get that. Not everything I say today are you going to agree with. My hope is today you'll be open-minded and maybe grab bits and pieces. So when you return to work on Monday, try something new. You don't have to agree with everything to find some value. There's always more than one way to solve a problem. Today, we're going to talk about solving problems. We're going to talk about the schedule model, but by no means am I insinuating it's the only tool in your toolkit. It just happens to be the topic of today's discussion. And lastly, keep the questions coming. It helps me understand where you want me to dive into, when you want me to move along. And it makes the presentation, the discussion, better for you. I want you to think back to the last project that you finished. Probably had a lot of meeting minutes, project schedules, action items, risk registers, communication plans, a lot of artifacts, right? How many of you have ever taken any one of those artifacts and gone to eBay and sold them? Has anyone? No. The last conference I spoke at, someone raised their hand and they said, in my organization, we're doing away with project managers. Now, I don't suggest that at all. I'll go on record. That is not what Nick is suggesting. But you could run a project, right, without a project manager. It's possible. So I ask if we as project managers produce nothing of material value, and you could run a project without us, why do we have jobs?
Implement the business owner's thoughts and processes, what they want done.
To implement the process and the thoughts? In the back?
I was going to say, the first assumption is incorrect to say we don't create things of value. We do, we just don't create things of value for people who shop on eBay.
Okay, so maybe there's a different market for those artifacts. I'll broaden the question. Has anyone sold any material artifact on eBay, Amazon, wherever? No, the point is correct. It's not of an artifact that has that value. PMI will say that we're here for the triple constraints, right? The cost, the schedule, the scope, or maybe even the quad constraints with quality in the middle, right? People, we're here because a seasoned, experienced, certified project manager raises the probability, the statistical probability of success. That's it. You could run a project without us. The likelihood that it would fail goes up. That's why we're here, to raise the probability of success. So what is success then? It's got to be more than just the triple constraints. I think it's more basic than that. It's, did the customer get what they expected, when they expected? Did they pay what they expected? And on the opposite, did you as the service provider make the profits that you expected? If you're not a profit center, if you're not a professional services organization, did you hit the budget that you expected? Were the benefits worth what you spent? It's about managing the gap between expectations and what you're forecasting to deliver, what you do deliver. Everything in project management is about that. You're either resetting the expectations of the customer or you're delivering what they expect. And anytime there's that gap, that delta, that's where you want to focus. I spent probably 18 or 17 years in project management, whether program, project, portfolio management, on the delivery side of the house. Then I moved into the services sales arena. It wasn't until I started spending that time that I really understand the value that the delivery team brings. Does your customer want to do business again? It's not just about the destination, it's about the journey as well. You want that repeat customer. You want to deliver the benefits, but you also want to be flexible, easy to work with. They have to want to do business with you again. What I see out there are a lot of what I call status reporters. This week I might be red or yellow. Last week maybe red. They're reporting on the today or the past. They tend to work in issues and problem management. Where we all want to be is working in the area of risk, solving problems before they occur. You want to be what I call the psychic plus. The psychic looks into the future, uses the process, the tools, 2, 3, 4 months down the line, and the plus part comes in because not only do they identify problems, but they solve them even before you knew it occurred. The beauty is, or the irony is, when you do this and do it well, management, the customer, they tend to wonder what you're doing. To them, you look like the swan. On the surface, everything is smooth. Now, underneath, that swan may be paddling like crazy. And you, as project managers, may be doing the same. If you're that psychic, you're doing it in a proactive manner, though. I had a project that I managed one time. We're about halfway through, and my manager gives me a call. He says, "Nick, I heard the project's going well." I said, "Yeah, we're hitting our milestones, the budget's on track, customer's happy." He says, yeah, I know." He says, "About that, since things are going so well, I've got what for you?" What do you think he had? "I've got more work for you," yes. And he used the term, "I have to steal some cycles." I said, "Wow, okay. I didn't know I had any cycles to steal." I should have taken that as a compliment. You see, when I'm doing my job, management wonders. They wonder about the effort, how much work you're doing. It's almost as if they think that there's this magical, pixie-wielding fairy running around, making your projects align. Think back to the last successful project that you finished. Did anyone sit around and wonder, wow, we finished this project successfully. I don't know how we ended up here. It all just happened. No, I've never wondered that, and I'm sure none of you as well. See, success is not by accident. I was called into my manager's office one Thursday afternoon. She says, "Nick, I've got some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is we won that security project. The bad news is I sold you as the security project management expert. You start Monday." Now, I don't suggest we take it to that extreme. What I do suggest is that if you look at the profile of the leadership, 80% of that profile comes from the project managers, knowing, understanding, being experts in the process. Because it's the same questions that you're going to ask of your team. Now, I get it. If you happen to have managed 50 bridge construction projects before, you're probably going to deliver that 50 first more successfully or likely than I would. But what I say, that 20% that's missing, look to your project architect, your lead technical person on your team. And if you don't have a project architect in your organization, I say just create it. Because in project management, we don't care about titles, do we? It's what is your role on my project? Create that role. Look to them for that 20%, the hows. Pick their brains. I call it black box project leadership. Starts off with the work breakdown structure going into the project schedule. Same questions. What are we here? Why do we need this task? If this task gets delayed, what gets impacted? You're building that structure. Same questions, project to project to project. Afterwards, we project managers tend to be pessimistic. We're poking holes in that schedule. I'm suggesting we also solve those holes, again, before the water comes through. But we should also be looking at the opportunities to speed things up, to de-risk your project. Because how many of your projects go completely smooth? Is anyone's? No. So look for areas to improve, to give yourself a break when they don't. I'm not here to sell you Microsoft Project. Your schedules can be in any project scheduling tool. What I am here to tell you is that tool is not Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. I'll say that again. You cannot run your projects in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. Why? There's no task relationships. You're simply managing using a list of tasks. When one thing changes, nothing else moves. There's no trickle effect. And the irony is, I see this time and time again. I see a lot of resistance to using a tool. I hear it takes too long. And I have to agree. If you've never used Project or a tool for scheduling before, you can do it quicker in Excel. You can set things up quicker. The first few projects will take you longer. But management doesn't want to see project reports. I agree with you as well. I suggest having two tools. Have a tool to run your project and a tool to report to management. Isn't it ironic that the ones who insist on using Excel, and probably no one here, right? But you might have colleagues back at the office, they put in nice colors, they add resources, they add start-finish dates. What do they do? What do they actually try to make Excel look like? Microsoft Project. Why don't we just use it, folks? I promise you, if you can't predict problems, you can't solve them before they occur. When we look at the theory and the tool sets, in project scheduling, we need to look at what questions do you need? What questions does your customer want answered? And what questions do you need answered to run your project better? And today, we're going to talk about that and then the mechanics as well. That's where the rubber meets the road. Not just what you need, but how do you do it? First, we start off with doing the right work. We're going to count on your management, your executives, to make sure that your projects are aligned to your strategy and your objectives. But after they decide that, it's about doing the work right. We're looking at what key dates does the customer desire and why. What are we forecasting to deliver? What if I'm late? What should the team be focused on? When do I bill the customer? All key questions that your schedules should help you answer. The schedule should work for you. Have you seen those schedules or the project managers who consider the schedule a Friday afternoon task? That's not where we want to be. You're not filling out a schedule because you have to. Use the tool, use it in the right manner, it will become a part of your daily job that you can't imagine running your project without it. So let's jump right into it. Need to lay out your project from beginning to end. The whole project, the big picture view. Just by having this view, I've found problems on my project. Nothing more than that. Had a project I was managing, laid out the plan. We had a pilot site. Someone had picked the pilot site to be the most complicated site. Why? Because you see, their WIFM, their what's in it for me, was that the pilot site would handle the hardest work. Someone else in the group looked up and said, are we out of our minds? We're going to do our pilot in New York. That's where all the traffic is. That's the heaviest concentration of traffic. Let's pick a site where we can learn, and if we fail, we don't fail big, and take that knowledge to the other sites. Just by this one diagram. There's nothing magical there, but if you're laying out your plans from beginning to end, I promise you, you will uncover issues. And if we didn't find that issue with the pilot site, do you think we would have eventually found the issue? Absolutely. But you find the problems early, it will be easier to recover than late. Every deliverable should be in the plan. I had a project manager who worked for me. Every time there was a discrepancy or discussion around what was in scope or out of scope, what do you think they did? They took out what? Can anyone tell me? The charter. The charter or the contract. How do you think that person appeared to the customer? Every time there's a question, they take out the charter. Trust?
Doesn't look good.
Doesn't look good? How about this? Customer has a scope question. Let me refer to the contract. You see on page 10, section 2, it says this, and you're asking me for that. Those are conversations, right, that you have to have, but can't you do it with the schedule? What I suggest is you map out your schedule, your work breakdown structure to match the contract. When you're done, present it to the customer or your sponsor. Say, does this meet what you're looking for? They sign off. Now, when you have those discussions, reference the schedule. It's the same discussion that you're going to have, but guess what? I look much better referencing the schedule than whipping out the contract every time there's a discrepancy. Folks, it makes a big difference. There's an art and a science, and then the art part of project management is really important, how you come off. Have you ever seen that task called documentation? Or configuration, Implementation. I ask, what is that? What is documentation? Verb noun. Create documentation, review documentation, approve documentation. Milestones, they have 0 duration. Documentation approved. Make your project schedules readable to the outsider. Does anyone know why they invented the tab key? It's for us project managers to organize our schedules. You don't list 100 tasks straight down. You group them. Why? So when you're talking to different levels of management, you could ungroup or group and have a different discussion. If your executives are anything like mine, they don't want to see your 1,000-line schedule, but they want to know what's going on. Tell them how you're going to get them from point A to point B. Show them the schedule, make it readable. No acronyms, easy to read. I should be able to pick up any of your schedules and get a general idea of what your project is all about. So the next time when you go back to your office, hand your schedule off. Group it, hand it to another project manager who has no idea, or not even a project manager. Hand it to someone outside project management and ask them if they know what's going on in your project. How many lines do your project plans typically have? Anyone tell me? Around 200. 200? Thousands. Thousands. Can you spend 1,000th or even 100th of your time on every single task? I can't. If you're not managing using exception management, you're doing your project yourself more harm than good. That's why we have standardization. If you've got a multi-site project, configuration, integration should mean the same for every project or every site. You want to use flags as your gauges as you're managing your projects. Where should I concentrate my attention? We're not only looking at the critical path, we're looking at owners. Your schedule should have one resource per task. So what happens when you have more than one resource or more than one task owner on a task? Accountability. What happens when things don't go as they're supposed to? Anyone? Whose fault is it? Right. If you have a task that has 2 people, break the task up. Have individual owners per task. If it's performed by a team, figure out who the team lead is. Who are you going to for your status? One resource. I even put in there an owner. If I'm doing work for a customer, the customer has their tasks as well. I'll put in the owning company there. And if you do internal work, you could put the department there. The point is to get accountability for every task. Percent roll-up complete. How many of you have had the discussions with the team? I'm 72% complete on this task. Last week I might have been 68. Does it mean anything to you? Well, they think it means we're just progressing. I suggest we use 3 numbers, 0, 50, or 100. Started, not started, complete. And I get it. There could be a rounding error there. So break your tasks into smaller tasks. 0, 50, or 100. Have you started, not started, or complete? Then I've got there the start-finish status. Folks, that's probably the biggest key to keeping your schedules accurate. So if the data in your schedules is not accurate and you're making decisions off of the output, are your decisions any accurate? It's garbage in, garbage out. The start-finish status looks at the start and the finish date. If the start date has passed, you should be anything but what? Anything but 0. If you're not, either the percentage is wrong, fix it, or the start date is wrong. What happens if you move that start date to the date that it's looking like it's going to start? If you set your schedules up correctly, what? What happens? Cascades. So if you're making decisions and a task has a start date 5 days ago, yet it hasn't started, you need to fix it. And the same on the finish date. If the finish date is passed and you're anything but 100%, something's wrong. Either the finish date needs to be pushed out, which will, of course, have a cascade effect, or the percentage complete is wrong. All these reports that I'm showing you, you could run them on your projects. And if you're a program manager and you're working in enterprise server, you can run all these reports across all the projects that you're managing. Think of the power. You got 10 projects maybe managed by 10 different people, and you could proofread their schedules instantly with that. Up runs a report, and you see nothing but yellow and red because that is not being updated. What they're telling you about their projects can't be accurate. Then there's the more traditional status, the status that compares the baseline to the forecast. Have you ever heard the saying, make it happen? What does that mean to you, make it happen? When your manager tells you, make it happen, what does it mean to you? Whatever it takes.
No excuses.
There you go, no excuses. Do you think they want to hear why you're not going to make it happen? No, they don't care. We have to train our customers. There's an ask, and then there's a forecast. There's a delta there. If you don't make it clear that those are two different things, it's make it happen, and they walk away. If you don't make it clear, I heard your ask, that's the baseline. This is what we're expecting to deliver if nothing changes. If we continue with the course, this is what you should expect. If you're not happy with that, let's work together to pull those in. So it's very important that you make it clear there's 2 dates there. I had a customer of mine, took over this project probably halfway through, 25% through, and we're sitting in a meeting, and the customer says, I want you to pull in the date of this key milestone by 2 weeks. And then he starts to walk out the door. Looked at him, I said, where are you going? Just make it happen. I said, I want you to get your project manager, get your lead architect, I'll get mine, we'll throw the schedule up, and we'll look for ways to bring in that date that you want. If you don't do that, it's make it happen. We were in that meeting, and if there were 5 things that came up that the dates needed to be pulled in, 3 my teams, 2 the customers. How do you suppose that meeting went that we had again a week from then? Do you suppose the customer took care of their items? No. Do any of you expect them to? No. Folks, without making that distinction, whose fault would it have been? Mine. You may say that's not fair. I'm not here to tell you life is fair. I'm here to tell you that if your customer, your sponsors, your management have duties, have responsibilities, tasks that they need to do to keep their own projects on track, and you don't tell them what they need to do, you are at fault. Is that what you've seen? Not saying it's fair. If you don't tell the customer what they need to do and it delays their own project, you are at fault. So I call it the to-do list, the 14-day outlook. I literally give my customer, and I'm talking paid engagements, I give my customer a list of items that they need to handle. The 14-day outlook looks 14 days into the future for any task that should either be starting or is already in progress, organized by company. If I'm doing internal work, it might be organized by department. Now, of course, before I hand this list of what the customer should do, what do you think I do with my tasks? Make sure your team is all over theirs, of course. And then you hand that to the customer. You can even use this report to break the barriers. Who cares what team you're on, what company you work for? I did a large systems integration deal, 12 companies. When I wanted to focus on accountability, company names were up there. When I wanted to strategize and to pull the team together, when I wanted to say, who cares who you work for? I removed it. We just had names. Joe Customer was the same as Nick the Delivery PM. When I managed projects, it was almost the handing of the baton with my management. As I was given a project, it was, here's your project. Now, when do I bill? When do I get my revenue? When do I get paid? Almost instantly. Now, of course, you can never know when you're getting paid until you put your schedule together. But I ask, how many schedules are out there and you can't determine when you're getting paid? And if you're doing internal work, when you need to maybe release funds. The first question I would always get asked was, what's my revenue rec schedule? When am I invoicing the customer? So include it. And your customers appreciate that. A lot of your customers probably have fiscal boundaries, fiscal years. That's on their mind. When do I owe you money? Work it into your schedules. I call it the good deed bank. If you're going to your customers with issues all the time, or that's your first interaction maybe with the customer, you've been running your project for a while, talk about your successes. Don't just let the successes happen and only talk about the issues or the problems. Bring them up, flaunt them. Work up the good deed bank. Because again, how many of your projects go completely Fault-free, issue-free, no hiccups, nothing. Can anyone tell me that's how their projects go? No. Prepare for those times. Give your customer a completed report. This is what I've done for you. What have I done for you lately? Flaunt it. So when issues happen, you've got that bank to pull from. Project is just a relational database. You could have many more fields than you want to display on any one report. For every task, put in those custom fields. Think business-wise. What questions will my stakeholders be asking where that information would be valuable? If you're working with the accounting team, maybe you're meeting with the director of accounting. He's going to want to know, how's my team doing? If you haven't flagged the tasks according to that department, you can't answer his question. And would you agree that if the director of accounting were asking you how his team were doing on your project, if you can't answer that, it's going to negatively impact your project? You've got buy-in there. They're asking these questions. He's going to help you get his resources to work better on your project, so be prepared for those questions. The what-if analysis. If you don't have this, you can't have that conversation with your customer. You can't sit down with your customer and say, we're in this together. If you're late on this, it impacts your own project. You must be able to do what-if analysis. It's crucial. It's not enough to just create project schedules in a quality manner. You need to look at how you're creating those schedules up front and then throughout the project. And again, all of these reports can be run on your projects or across a whole program. Do you have a resource assigned for every task? Project will let you create a task with no resources assigned. It's perfectly fine. They'll let you create a task with no owner assigned. Perfectly fine. No predecessor or successor. I literally create a start and an end task. Literally call it project start, project end. If you do that, should not all of your tasks have both predecessors and successors? If you have a task that doesn't have a predecessor, start it now. Why can't you start it now? Ask your team why you can't start that task now. They'll probably tell you, well, we're waiting on the low-level design. We're waiting on the configuration file to be created. You just missed a relationship. If they say we can start now, link it to project start. And the reverse. What task will be delayed if that task is late? And what happens if they say nothing? Why are we doing it? If the end of your project isn't impacted, why are we doing it? I call it a dangling task. If there's no successor, why are you doing the task? Every task should have a predecessor and a successor. Another one of the reports, you run that through for your whole team, you will catch 90% of the issues in your schedules. Now, granted, the filter, the report, it doesn't look at logic. There's no filter that you can run that's going to know if the logic is set properly. But this will catch 90% of the issues. So today, we only have 60 minutes here. It's obviously not enough time to make you all experts in the tool, and it's not meant to do that. What I'm hoping is I'm giving you that openness, that challenge to, when you return to work, go and explore. Explore the business questions that you have or that your sponsors have, and explore how to make that happen in the tool set. Project Organizer is your friend. That's where you want to be. First, start with the business question. What do you think your customer is interested in, or what do you need to run your project more successful? Create a view. Think of views as answering questions. One view per question. In that view, what information do you need to answer that question? The information is going to come from the fields, which are grouped in a table. When you create your table-to-view relationship, it's 1-to-1. As you change the fields in that table, it will change them wherever that table is used. So if you think you're making your report look pretty, and you've used that table multiple places, odds are that table might look pretty in one view and not so pretty in another. It's a 1-to-1 relationship. In the table, you're going to add in fields. Microsoft Project gives you some fields. Some fields you need to customize, you need to add. That's the department level information, that's the customer information, that's all the status fields that I talk about. Add those in. Group. I was showing the 14-day outlook group by customer or by resource. Use the grouping and the filters to align your reports to the strategies that you have. Make it strategic. If I'm trying to pull a whole team of different members of organizations together, I'm not going to call out that you're from accounting, you're from finance, and you're from operations, because I've now created 3 separate teams. I'm going to pull them all together. How you define your reports, all these technical little details, they impact your team. Final thoughts. I believe the process trumps we've done this before. I believe a good project manager can move from project to project to project, technology to technology to technology. Lean on your project architects for the hows. We need to be experts at the process. Project management is not about being a great firefighter. It's a skill set that we all need to have, but if you're putting out fires that you yourself could have stopped, could have prevented, well, what's the value in that? Be like that swan. Solve problems before they occur. The firefighting, of course, if problems do come up, yes, jump in and solve those. But that shouldn't be our normal everyday behavior. Solve issues before they ever come up. Remember why we have jobs? Our job is not to produce status reports as a value add. You're not going to go and sell that status report on eBay or Amazon or anywhere at a garage sale. Does that artifact get the job done? Does it help the project move along? Does it help the probability for success? And I've seen a lot of these behaviors in the industry, and I think we as an industry need to change. When I started, the saying was that 20% or 80% of projects failed. Here we are 20 years later. What's the number? The same. 80% of projects fail. I don't know about you, but I'm tied to project management as an industry, and I hate that fact. 80% fail. 20 years ago, 80% fail. This year, 20% are successful, 80% fail. We, as an industry, must try something new. So that's my challenge for you today, is go back Monday, try something new. Success is not by accident. Thank you. Questions, comments, feedback? Sure.
On your percent complete roll-up that you're doing, based on your experience, how are your EVM numbers pulling based on I'm either started, not started, or done? Because if I started today and it's due 2018, I shouldn't be at 50% just because I started.
Sure. The question had to do with the start-finish 0, 50, or 100 and how that fed into an earned value management system. So I'll first start off with, I've never actually seen an earned value management system in any organization that I work in tied in, for example, to time reporting and actually grabbing the cost structure with the revenue coming in. Not to say that it still makes the question any different. What I'm suggesting is you're doing it on a task-by-task basis. So it's not the whole project, it's a task. And if your tasks are, let's say, 2 days apiece, or maybe you have tasks that are 40 hours, I suggest breaking those into smaller tasks, the management level. So yes, there is an inaccuracy that is added by the rounding error. If that becomes too great, I would make your tasks smaller. Otherwise, what I believe you're going to find yourself is having that discussion with your resources that they're 78% versus 84% complete, which it's not as powerful as 0, 50, or 100.
So it's more information you're pulling in your status meetings or something, you're just getting the updates from your teams? Just
Right. I've worked in organizations where we've had an enterprise management system, but I've never seen resources just go to a portal and fill in whether they're complete or not. I've gained that by asking my task members directly. So, I mean, you could still run the same reports. If you're in an organization that actually can tell you accurately, I'm 84% complete, fine, use it. Go ahead. The reports still look at 0 and 100, start dates, finish dates. It would still work if you can get that level of information that's accurate.
You talked about a 14-day to-do list. How often do you do that? Every 14 days or weekly for the next 14 days?
Sure, the question had to do with how often you prepare the 14-day outlook. So what I didn't show up there is I also have a 30-day outlook as well. It all depends upon the project size. So if you have a short project, you might make that duration smaller, longer, might be longer. I tend to use those reports in my weekly meetings with the customer. Take out the plan. These are the tasks that your team's working on the next 2 weeks. Mine are as well. And I would do that weekly. But you can also PDF any of these reports, send them on out to your customer. So for me, it became just a daily tool. It wasn't something Friday afternoon, I'm updating my 14-day outlook. And it's all automatic. You're updating your tasks. I'm working from it. If ever there's a field that pops up that is red or yellow, it's telling me that that percentage complete is not accurate. It needs to be updated. So I'm looking at that 14-day outlook, making my updates, and then things are shifting. Baselines are not matching the forecast, and then I'm concentrating on that, how I can pull it back in. What I also didn't say is on that start-finish status, if it's flagged as missing the start date or the finish date, I turn it yellow. If that's also on the critical path, I turn it red. So it gives me an area to do more of that exception management. Question?
I've been in organizations where, you know, I like to use Visio for process maps and Microsoft Project, but I have to beg to get the tools. Why do you suppose there's an aversion just to even buy what the project manager needs?
The question had to do with what may be some of the pushback to getting the tools that project managers need. That's a very loaded question. I do think that project managers outside of project managers are not always so very well understood. I think there's people that just believe, give them an Excel, you could do it from there. My last project manager used the tool, why can't you? I think that there's also a lot of project managers out there who are status reporters. They take great meeting minutes, notes. They will say, Sue said this to Bill, Mary said this to Sue, versus an action item list. And I think when we call ourselves project managers and behave in that manner and use Excel to run our projects, sometimes management doesn't see past that, and they can't understand why you need that tool. So it's a chicken before the egg. We have to show them the value that we can bring with the tool, but if you can't get the tool, how do you show them that value?
How do you adapt these principles, these best practices to agile approaches like Scrum?
The question had to do with how do we adapt this to Agile. So I am not an Agile expert. I have done a lot of reading on Agile. I'm not educated enough with Agile to know where its place is, okay? I'm not convinced that any one methodology is good for everything. So I don't tend to look at how do I do this in this tool set or this process. I tend to look at it, what are you trying to do? So it's hard to say how would I do this with Agile, because I've not spent a lot of time in software development or in the Agile world. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Nicholas, thank you on behalf of PMI-CIC for coming today. Normally at this point, we would be presenting you a gift in thanks of your contribution today. However, they haven't arrived yet, so we'll make sure you get that later today. So,
Thank you.
all great plans, you know, obviously, we adjust and we roll.
That's absolutely.
But thank you.
Thank you.